is disputing Capital Resorts, and oddly enough, ARDA, the Timeshare Industry Lobby, the American Resort Development Association, is opposing this bill. And Dan bought from Capital Resorts, and the chairman of ARDA ROC, which stands for Resort Owner Coalition, and they're supposed to be the entity that protects us. The chairman is also an executive consultant with Capital Resorts. So Dan, tell us, first of all, I'm just really impressed at what you've done to reach out to Senator Roger Wicker of Mississippi to show why you are supporting the bill. And let's go ahead and have you tell us why you want to cancel. You purchased 150,000 points for $18,000 and you financed it. And so why were you not happy with what you purchased?
Well, everything that I'm finding out is they've just lied to me from the get-go. In the beginning, because I bought it in the end of 2022, they said, I would get 150,000 points, for the year of 2022. I'd get a bonus 150,000 points for signing that day. And then they told me, well, as soon as 23 rolls around, you'll get another 150,000 points. So basically, I would be starting out the year in 23 with 450,000 points, would be able to take a decent trip. But then I did also ask them about, what if this thing doesn't work out? I asked this guy straight to his face. I said, hey, what if me and my wife just don't, this doesn't work for us? And anyhow, he looked me straight in the eye and he's like, oh, well, all you got to do is write a couple letters to the developer and they'll let you out. And then that sunk in my mind. I'm like, all right, and anyhow, we went to the, you only had the 5 days on a recession period. And
tell us about the rat.
Yeah, so we stayed at this place called the Grand Crown in Branson. Basically we started off, we went to Walmart and this lady run up to us and is like, oh, are you here visiting? And I can get you all this free stuff and you can stay at this Grand Crown for like $99 for the whole weekend. And me and my wife were like, yeah, sure, that's great. You just got to sit through the presentation. And, it took out, of course it took hours, but anyhow, at the Grand Crown, when we went to leave on Sunday, our car, it wouldn't crank up. And then when it finally did crank up, it ran really bad. The fan was on the whole time. And we got to checking, and overnight, staying at their resort, a rat ate our wiring harness on our engine. And I had to drive home like 5 hours with the fan on under the hood, sounding like a jet plane, and car lagging terribly. And we got back into town and took the car to the shop. And before I know it, before I know it, we get our 5 days was gone on a recession, but I also wasn't thinking about it because they said, oh no, it's no big deal. Timeshares have changed. They're
okay,
not.
Wait a minute, let me stop you there. So what I want to do is tie one of the bill provisions to each of your experiences. So one of the provisions is, right now it is 3, 5, 7, or 10 days to cancel. And people will post, you had 5 days to cancel. Well, they might have signed in Nevada and the person asking in Florida, which is 10 days. So would a 14-day rescission period have helped you or not, because the person told you could cancel even after? And were you aware of the 5 days? Many people are not, right?
I was aware of the 5 days, but he threw me for a loop by telling me that it was not a big deal. I wouldn't have to get an attorney involved. And, I would just have to write letters to the developer. So, back in my mind, I'm like, well, if this doesn't work out, we can get out of this, which doesn't, is definitely not the case.
And I appreciate the ARDA has introduced the Timeshare Consumer Protection Center, and you did reach out to Capital. And was the reason you wanted to cancel just because you felt you were a little bit deceived by the points that didn't materialize and by the rescission? Is that the primary reason?
That is a good part of it, but the new owners clinic is where it really went bad fast. The new
What
owners clinic,
happened?
I get in there and the guy looks at my contract and he's like, "Oh, this is done all wrong. Where did you have this done?" I tell him at Branson, "Well, they screwed it all up and you're paying too much. I could have done the same $250 a month plan for $89. And what I could do for you is I could get you a 1,000,000 point plan for $139 a month." He said, "Now you won't be using the whole 1,000,000 points. What you're going to do is buy them, but then you're going to call me back tomorrow and sell them back." And I was like, that, in my mind, I'm like, that just sounds so fishy. So I go back to the finance office when we agree on everything, and I'm looking at the contract, and I can see across the top, it's $1,300 a month, and he's trying to get me to sign this thing. And I said, "No." I said, "Your guy out here, he told me that would be $139 a month. I am not signing this." And so I didn't sign that. And anyhow, we went come back home, and that's when we started making our phone calls and sending our letters to Capital. Get to thinking about this and getting to looking it up on the internet. Heck, the plan that we bought, the 150,000 point plan, they're on eBay for $1. So it tells you it has no value at all. But then, after I reached out to the company, they sent me a letter telling me they investigated my claims and told me that they're untrue and I'm just a liar.
And I love what you said, that you heard on the radio a voice that sounded like it came down from the heavens. And we're not going to say the name of that company, because I do know they will refund if they're if it's not resolved in 3 years. And you've been 3 years this month, right?
Last month, yes. And they also haven't reached out yet. They said, that they could probably do it all within 90 days, but it's officially now 30 days. And I have not heard back from them.
So you need to contact them. And so did you you did sign the second contract as well?
No, I did not.
Good. Okay. And you did have a loan and you did stop making loan payments?
Yeah, there was a little bit of stuff going on with that, but yes, we did stop making, at the advice of the exit company, we did stop making payments to them.
And how long ago was that? That was a while ago, right?
Yeah, we signed in October of 22, and I believe the last payment was February of 23.
Okay, let's switch over to Wesley. And Wesley, even though we don't have as much time as we used to, I still was very impressed by your the type of work you do and the staff that you retain. Tell us a little bit about what's been going on in your commercial life this week.
Yeah, economy's kind of taking a little bit of a downturn, so we're having to lay off a few folks. The difficult thing is we hire mostly second chance employees, either those who have criminal records, spending time in halfway houses, drug histories, just trying to get their lives turned around. That's a lot of what we have here for employees. So, hoping things turn around here with the economy, so we can bring these folks back on board.
Absolutely. And you purchased from Holiday Inn Club Vacations, and I've introduced you when I decided that when I heard two other people that reached out this week, I decided that the title of this show could be the 3-Card Monty, because we had the other two people that I introduced you to said that they went to the second update just like Dan did, and this is industry-wide. "Oh, I can't believe that's all you bought. You're not going to be able to vacation with that at all." And both of them are in default because of being upsold for reasons, and that yet you received a 6-page epistle, single space, from Holiday Inn saying, "Oh, yes, of course, it's no problem." And that there's 12 things I'd like to talk about. We'll probably have time to talk about 2 of them. Maybe want you to come back again, but go ahead and tell us what your intent was for purchasing. And you stopped making payments in August, right, of 2025.
Yes,
so tell us your timeshare journey here.
Well, we just become ISG members. Stayed at a hotel and got a phone call, out of the blue. And I probably let 4 or 5 phone calls go. Didn't really pay any attention. Then got a phone call talking about trip and a presentation, and I know what all that's about. I've got parents who have gone to the timeshare presentations and friends who have gone to the timeshare presentations, and they had a property in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, which is just right up the road. So I figured, wife and I could have a good weekend, and on their dime, and walk out and say no, we're not interested in timeshare. And of course, just like Dan, timeshares have changed. As a matter of fact, they told me that this wasn't a timeshare. It's a points club. So essentially, we could come in and purchase a certain amount of points every year and use those for great and grand vacations at any of their clubs, plus have access to the RCI portal, where there would just be a flat $399 fee $299 fee to book anywhere in the world using our points. So that was fantastic. Again, was real, not really that interested. Wife and I do a lot of traveling, but they came back, I was like, I don't know. This kind of sounds like a timeshare. Oh, don't worry, Wes. It's not a timeshare. And that's the first thing that kind of piqued my interest a little bit. And, the fact that everything, every time that I'd come back with, this sounds like a timeshare, everybody had said, this is not a timeshare. So after, sitting there for what's supposed to be a 90-minute presentation and tour, they toured me they've got 2 different resorts in Myrtle Beach. They toured us on their nice brand new beachfront resort, and came back and we signed papers at their off beachfront resort. That's where the initial meeting and sales pitches were done. Come back there and they sit down and we start going through everything, and I'm talking to the wife. I'm like, this doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever.
Let me ask you a question. You had said that you specifically asked that you do almost all of your traveling through sandals.
Yes, yeah, we do a lot of our traveling through sandals, and they had come on and said, "Oh, don't worry, through RCI, you can get vacations through sandals using RCI and your points, and it's going to be a lot, obviously a lot cheaper than what you're currently paying now by just the $299 fee and your points." Fantastic. So as we continue to go through all of this, I'm like, well, what if something happens? And I asked this to our sales rep, what if something happens and we can't do this anymore, or it's not what it's cut out to be? So, well, don't worry, you can either sell it or you can just give it back. And I was like, okay.
Industry wide, yeah, just like Dan.
Yeah. And so I was like, all right. So, and I asked him, I asked his sales manager, and then they brought in an office manager. Because again, I wanted to make sure that, I had as many people tell me that, it's just give it back if you don't want out, and walk away. And I had all 3 of those individuals tell me that, this is a points system. It's a club, and all you got to do is just give it back and walk away, or you have the option to sell it to somebody as well. And they said, even to help
let me stop you. Take a timeout right there for the proposed bill for the 14-day rescission period. Did you have access to the booking site before 14 days?
I did not.
No. So you really, the answer is always, you should have signed, you should have read the contract. You had in 5 days or 7 days in South Carolina right now to cancel. And so I reached out to Senator Curtis's office and said that would be good to standardize, but by not having the booking site. Now, were you also told, I think Dan meant you could rent the points out? I know you said sell. Sometimes people say sell, but sell means to get rid of them forever.
Yes, that was their official statement. The sales rep did come back and says, hey, you could also, if you want, just go ahead and, buy your purchase your trips, and either sell your individual trips, or you can go ahead and rent those out. To help offset the costs. And I'm like, well, that sounds like a pretty good deal. Obviously, if this is, if I'm going to get through, and I kind of, crunched some numbers, did some math, and it kind of worked out pretty decent if I could rent all my points out. But obviously, when you're sitting there in a meeting and you have no contact with the outside world, come to find out when you start looking at things later, it's not so easy.
I'm
Yeah,
guessing
actually,
that the Holiday Inn answer was, our sales agents would never say that it was a timeshare, and they would never tell you that you could rent it out. Is that, or that you can? What was the response from Holiday Inn?
the response from Holiday Inn, it was that it's against their policy to allow property holders to rent out their personal timeshares, and so there was no way then that my sales guys would instruct us against their policies.
Exactly. So it's kind of a gotcha. And also, you had said when you were first invited to this, and it's Marriott, Hilton, Holiday Inn, because they have the big hotel brands, we're all reward points members with the hotel side, and just they never say it's a timeshare. So when they called you to invite, they never said it was a timeshare, but then Holiday Inn, you said, responded with big bold print. Well, when we responded with an email, it said it was a timeshare. So, but the thing is, it's the caller, you get the call, and then you kind of put it aside and you get an email confirming. So I think it's deceptive not to say that it's a timeshare when these brand names call you when you have a credit card purchase. Kim, you want to weigh in on our guests today? What have you been thinking about all this?
Well, I see a trend happening with the sales pitches, the misrepresentation of oral representation, and it's very concerning to me when I hear it's not a timeshare, it's points. And I got sold pretty much the same deal, but I was drunk when they sold it to me, like seriously drunk. It was a St. Patrick's Day weekend, a year after my husband's death. I went to Chicago. I had no idea that the weekend package I bought was a timeshare, and that I had to go to a presentation. So pretty much we were told if we didn't sit in on the timeshare sales pitch, we would have to go find another room. Well, and then flying there, I was in first class, and going up, we drank mimosas. Coming down, we drank Irish coffee. So I tried to tell them I'm too drunk to sit in on this, but they forced us anyway. 4 hours later, but I'm signing a piece of paper because they told me I could give it back anytime I wanted. There was no, but they showed me a points. You're buying points. Well, one of my questions to them after I sobered up was, because I didn't know, they told me I could give it back whenever, was do the points lose credibility or money? And they said, oh, no, you'll always be able to use the same amount of points. Well, what my question meant was, do they lose value as time goes by? Well, what I noticed is they did. Like,
Kim, I think we're out of time.
A hotel this big, and next year it would be this big, and so I would have to buy more points. So the point system is not good. It's not like, but they did on points.
We need to cut it off. I know that we have to have a hard close because we're going to stitch the resource library. I put this up here.
Watch
the next 35
resource
minutes.
Libraries.
Very good information from all of the providers there. So thank you, everybody, and we'll be having you guys back to see. This is a fluid situation, and we'll see what the situation is a few months from now. Okay, all
But
right.
don't be scammed by them. You know, reach out to someone like Irene before you buy, or go on, Google or eBay and see how much things are before you buy them there. You're investing in a lot of money for a 1 hour session of something you didn't think of before you went in. So, they catch you on that. Just, use your resources and use a little bit of sense that says, if this sounds too good to be true, it probably is.
Thank you both. And
Thank
I'd
you
suggest
very
you
much
send
for your
the link
stories.
to this to your respective timeshare companies.
That's right. And we'll see you next Monday, 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, where we are sharing more stories and trying to find solutions. Everyone take care, stay healthy so you stay wealthy.
Thank you.